So we're here today with Brent Kelley, who has a myriad of horror, fantasy, and slightly whimsical stories that seem to cause huge amounts of trouble. So,
Thank you for bringing me on. Pleasure to meet you and talk to you.
yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're currently working on.
I am just turned 40. I guess I didn't just turn 40. I've been 40 since May. I live in the Wisconsin North Woods, and I have a little boy who is 7 and just started his second day of school today as we record this in second grade. And we got a house full of tiny dogs. There's some birds over there who you might hear. We have a snake upstairs named Darth Batman.
Wait, and Darth Batman?
Darth Batman, yeah. I was gonna name him Darth Spider-Man. My wife said no, that's a stupid name. I said okay, I won't name him Darth Spider-Man, and then it became Darth Batman, and there was not going to be any arguing.
Fantastic. Although slightly confused the genres there, but
yeah, it's fascinating. If you go on Google Image, you can find a lot of cool Darth Batman images. It turns out, Batman with a red lightsaber, and
okay. To Google.
Now is I've got a dark fantasy thing about these 5 hordes and these people who are trying to escape them, and it's pretty early on in the process, but I'm really excited about where that one's headed.
Is this Mongol hordes or hordes of supernatural creatures trying to eat the world?
All right, they're kind of it's on a kind of a it's a fantasy planet. And these hordes are they're big evil guys. I'm trying not to make
Give
them
too much away.
I don't want them to be orcs or anything.
Sure.
When I first started thinking about it, we played a lot of Breath of the Wild, and they were all kind of like Lionels in my head. So I'm trying to avoid making them into Lionels, but I don't want them to be orcs either. But they're definitely big and they're mean. And
okay.
People.
Okay. Interesting. So what is their end goal? Is this like world domination, or they just like causing chaos type of thing?
They are, there's kind of a balance between hordes, and it is broken, and they're all going to go to war with each other.
And everyone else is caught in the middle? Pretty
much, yeah.
Oh my, that was a bird?
Yeah, that was Bluey.
What kind of birds do you have? Just
little budgies. Yeah. And so my son named them. The blue one is named Bluey. The yellow one is named Beaky. And there's Greenie up at the other house. And is it Happy? There's I forget the 4th one, but anyway. They're not as much fun as the dogs.
Yeah.
We got S'mores is the new addition to the family. He just turned a year. And so he's a lot of fun. He wants to run around and play. Now Mo and JP are the other ones, and they don't. They don't. They snuggle at a very high level. In caliber.
And they're all the Chinese crested. Yeah. Okay. Very cool. Very cool. I rarely see that dog breed, but that's slightly off topic. Okay, so dark fantasy, and you've got also your Chuggy series, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
How do you find switching between the two styles?
Well, I mean, I think they're very much they're very similar. Chuggy really is. He's dark fantasy, and he's on his own world called Magmel, and they're different factions and abilities, and Chuggy's kind of the embodiment of Drought. A couple he's got 3 siblings, and there's he's Drought. There's fire, flood, and sickness. And so the sisters are fire and flood, and the brother is sickness, and they all kind of respond in different ways to the powers that they have. And so far we've only met. We got 3 books in on Chuggy so far, and we've only met one sister. But the next one I want to introduce the brother. But so what I like about writing these guys or these worlds that are kind of my own creation is that I get to make the rules there. Whereas if I'm setting a story on Earth today,
Right. Yeah.
I need to explain things like why don't cell phones work here, or they didn't make that model of car in that year. And
Right. Right. I
things
mean,
like that.
to be fair, I think most people don't know why cell phones don't work most of the time.
Well, sure.
And as far as car models, that one you get a lot of people who like to be persnickety about.
Yeah, or guns. If you describe a gun and you call it a pistol and it's a revolver, or there's just different.
Yeah, the weapons gurus.
Yeah.
So not so much on the setting things in the real world. Do you ever do that?
Yeah, I have. I did a young adult kind of comedy horror called Keep Away from Psycho Joe. It's set in a small town in northern Wisconsin, very much like the town I grew up in, and so yeah, I kind of have a good understanding of the geography there, and it's in a rural setting, so it's very, very easy for cell phones not to work. Where there's things that could be solved, like just get on Facebook and say, hey, has anybody seen this, and then
Right.
But we get around that because they don't have any Wi-Fi out there up in the hills.
I can see how that would be problematic. Although I would very much like to see a story where someone has all of the technology and they use it to the full extent and it still doesn't help.
Yeah. As far as the details, like things like that, I tend to shy away. I don't think I'm the guy to write that story.
Yeah.
Whereas if I'm writing Chuggy, this guy turned, this thing, she summoned a giant stone snake out of the sky and it fell and crushed these guys. Okay.
Oops.
Well, it happened because I said so. If you say that happened and Keep Away from Psycho Joe, there's going to have to be some explaining and
yeah.
Am I lazy? Maybe.
No, you just like to have all of the power.
I like that better.
That's my explanation. If I have to do research, then someone else has all the power, and I have to adhere to, the laws of physics. Whereas otherwise, I'm in charge.
Yeah.
So that'll work. Okay, so stay away from Psycho Joe. Psycho Joe, yeah?
Yeah, Keep Away from Psycho Joe.
Keep away from Psycho Joe. Okay, so how is that? Because that one's horror. Is it not? Or is it dark fantasy also?
It's horror, but there's a lot more joking around in that one. The main character is like a high school student, and he's not a good student either, so he's got a problem with his history teacher. So he kind of starts this notebook where he's writing these silly, sarcastic entries. He calls it the Encyclopedia Stupidica, and he writes about like the Apollo moon mission was a rocket where the astronaut on board was just flying around the world, mooning, every country he passes, and then he there's a malfunction and he's just kind of floating off into space, and they told him they're going to go rescue him, but they're not, and so just like nonsense little encyclopedia entries like that. And then he also draws some cartoons in there that are just little crappy borderline stick person drawings to make fun of his neighbor Joe, the local crazy guy. So there's a lot of joking around, and he's working on a farm, and the grandma is like that he's working for she's pretty sarcastic and doesn't take any crap off these young kids, and his neighbor Cludes, that is his kind of best friend for the summer. They kind of play off each other really well, and then the girl that he likes, Justine, is Cludes' cousin. She's around a lot, and she's also very sarcastic. So, there's the horror element, and then there's a lot of kids being kids and
right, sure,
rubbing against adults and.
So how do you balance that? Because usually horror novels, horror, dark fantasy, any of the Darker ends of things, they tend to be less humorous than otherwise, and if you add the humor, then they almost have you switch genres.
That's a good question. She's got a good eye for that. Like, this isn't a good time for a joke, or you get something here to lighten the mood,
Right.
or whatever. So like, yeah, I guess when I started writing Psycho Joe, a lot of the stuff that I started writing, like, I think it's just going to be this bleak and serious thing, and then I kind of fall onto a joke that I want to put in there for a grin, and then like the Encyclopedia Stupidica thing. I just written something about what an idiot Christopher Columbus was and how everybody hates him, and then I sent that to the publisher, the editor, and it wasn't even related to Psycho Joe. It was just a thing that I wrote and sent to her. She's like, "Yeah, that's going in the book. You need a lot more." Yes. So then you just get a little tiny notebook, and you'll be sitting there waiting for your turn at the dentist office or something. You pull out your little notebook and write something stupid about Egypt, something that didn't actually happen, and throw it in there, and just let the editor figure it out. She's good.
Editors are worth their weight in gold. Yeah, pretty much. So, what's your least favorite bit about the writing, publishing, marketing, whatever process?
I am not good at marketing. So I mean, it starts way up here, like, oh, I got all these ideas and I'm writing them down on little note cards and stuff, and then the writing is in the middle, like we actually got to take these things and expand them into more than just Mokino runs out screaming, so but that's still fun. Then you get that sent in, and you wait like you're getting results from a medical, like a CAT scan or something, for the editor to say like, oh, this is good, we're going somewhere. Just like, this is going to need a lot of work, and so you just kind of wait until the lab results come back and chew your fingers down a little bit, and then the editing. Like, I kind of hate the editing. It wasn't as fun as the writing.
Well,
and then the marketing, for me anyway, get into that. It's like, man, I wish I was back doing editing,
Right.
So
yeah.
It's just a decline from the beginning, and the joy is, when you hold that in your hand and,
oh yeah,
look what I made. Hey, wife, look at. Yes, dear. Hey, Jordy, look at what Daddy did. Yes, Daddy.
All of the people sort of like, yes, well, we've seen this before, haven't we?
Yeah. Well, and you go to like the family reunion, and like, oh yeah, what are you working on now? Like, well, don't worry about what I'm working on now. Worry about the book that I released 2 months ago that I know you haven't bought yet. Mom.
Yeah. The people that you actually want to read the book who are like, well, I read the back.
Like, when's the next Chuggy book coming out? You haven't played with the Chuggy I already gave you, But the family is, they're always very supportive. But at the end of the day, the ones that are going to buy it are going to buy it, and the ones that aren't. But
right.
That's not who I'm after for readers. Is not that I don't want their support, but the crowd of dark fantasy readers that's worldwide,
Oh yeah.
That's who I'm chasing. And the family reunion, they're gonna be there every year, and I'm gonna bring out some books. I'm gonna be like, hey, give me $10 for this. Yeah, that's right. There you go. I'll sign it to you. There you go, Aunt Janet. Love you.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the dark fantasy world would freak out a little bit if that were to be the case.
Well, free hugs for all of them. They come buy a copy from me and run into me on the street. I'll give them a hug.
Yep.
What?
Has that ever happened?
No.
Will it ever happen?
Well, maybe.
Have to go to a convention or a writing, fair or something like that. Yeah.
Gotta get out of the woods in northern Wisconsin. I was actually just at StokerCon out in Grand Rapids, Michigan, back in May. And that's kind of when we released the collection Doomsday Furnace and gave out just a ton of promo copies to horror writer friends out there, and it was a really good time.
Yeah.
And
yeah. I'm not familiar with StokerCon. That's Bram Stoker, obviously. But...
Yeah, they give out. Yeah, so the Horror Writers Association gives out the Bram Stoker Award every year, and I'm gonna chase one this year. See if I can round up some support for that for the Doomsday Furnace.
Yeah, ooh, that'll be exciting. And how does one actually go about doing that? Because I hear about all of these awards and things that are happening, and it's like, wait a second, I missed that bus.
Well, for the StokerCon, for the Stoker Award, one of the things I'll need to do is kind of send out a mass email to the people in the organization that accept like promotional stuff.
Oh.
So kind of got to go through and take out all of them that say yes, you can send me stuff, and put them in a spreadsheet. And then I MailChimp and send them an opt-in. Say, hey, here's your chance to get your hands on my short story collection. If you want to, grab that for Stoker consideration, let me know what format you want, and I will email that to you right away.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
After that, some of them read it. Well, you get a response from I've gotten about 10%.
Okay, that's pretty good, actually.
The answer. So, then send it to them, and hopefully a few of them read it. And if they like it, they can give you a recommendation, and then if you get enough recommendations, you can get onto the move up the list.
Right. Sure. That is probably the most direct means of marketing that I have seen in a while. So, congrats. That's impressive and slightly terrifying to the writers who would prefer to say anonymity. Well, but also readers.
And you don't want to sound stupid in your message, so you sit there with this little email that you've written. It's like 4 sentences long, and you just stare at it until the letters don't make up words anymore. And you're like, no, I should probably go lay down.
Yeah.
A dog before I click send on this.
I'm fairly certain I sound silly in all of those messages, so I've just kind of adopted that as my style at this point.
Oh, well, perfect. I'm going to think about using that for myself.
Yeah, because that way I don't have to worry about, okay, am I using the correct addressing, and do I need to put a comma or a semicolon or punctuation and grammar? And it's always a bit crazy.
It's fun to overthink.
Little bit, yep. But that's why we have editors, right? They do the overthinking for us.
Yeah. I think if I sent all my emails to my editor before I sent them out, she'd strangle me.
It's probably not a great idea then. Oh well, worth a shot. All right, is there a story out there that someone else has done, and this could be television or a play or a book or whatever, that you wish you had written? Wow, your bird has quite the opinion on this question.
Well, he's saying True Blood, but I didn't read True Blood, and I only half liked the show, so just pipe down, Bluey. You'll get your chance. So let's see, The Gunslinger by Stephen King, and that was a huge inspiration for me, and kind of Chuggy in some ways started off as kind of a response to that. So Roland has a mission that he's going after this tower, but where Chuggy, in response to that, he doesn't really have. He's just kind of wandering around and
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, good enough.
And the other one that it's the second one is, so it's God's Demon is the first one, and the second
Mhm.
one is The Heart of Hell by Wayne Barlow. And I just got The Heart of Hell because I mean it just came out, but um, those things are fascinating. And
Really? I've not heard of those ones. I mean, I've heard of them, but I've not actually read them.
yeah, crazy good. And my my wife thought the first one was a little dense, and as I read the second one, it is a little dense. But I mean, you get through the wording and the
Hmm.
sentences kind of swoop up and down, and he's pretty artful in his sentence craft, and
Hmm.
sometimes they get a little long. I tend to keep it short and clear. I don't want to confuse anybody
Yeah.
with what I'm trying to do. It's kind of a phobia that I have, like um, sitting there writing and I just don't want to be mistaken. I want people to understand clearly what I'm saying.
Yes, I can
So
understand that
when
one.
when Wayne Barlow's sentences get really um, verbose and heavily punctuated,
Mm.
it's not not my way,
Hmm.
but I definitely enjoy reading it, and I like the stuff that he comes up with is just wild.
Oh
And
yeah.
further you get in the book, it's like, man, where'd you get that? I'm jealous of him. And so when I wrote the third Chuggy book, I,
Hmm.
I had just read God's Demon, and I was trying to use some of his tricks, if you will. Just
Ah,
trying to write it as crazy as Wayne Barlow gets, and I don't know how I did, but I think I did all right.
okay. Okay. And what are those tricks? Is this a
Just
write
the
everything down and then throw it out, or roll the dice, or talk
well,
to improv students?
he's just coming up with like just crazy creatures and structures that are just impossible, and and then well part of it is that he's also a painter, so
Right.
he's got just a whole big series of paintings of his stuff from hell too, and so to be able to read about it and then see this badass art, you
Hmm.
know, that's depicting these scenes, just whacked out monsters and yeah,
Yeah.
he's just super creative, and I that's where I am trying to get to.
Painting wise, or just
Just
writing wise?
writing wise, I haven't painted in a while, but um, I I like a lot of Chet Zar as a painter
Hmm.
who, like, if you know, a lot of his stuff is like just like a bust portrait of just this crazy creature monster guy, and so I kind of like that, just a portrait of some horror thing. And
Sure.
um, so that was the last thing I did, was this kind of portrait of chest up with this guy. He's got like three black shiny eyes, and he's got some horns, and his teeth are just kind of all exposed, and he's got like furry, and then there's these mountains behind him, and it's all like pink and cyan and creamy colors. And
Uh-huh. Interesting. Not colors I would have expected. But then, given your work, perhaps that is not surprising. The unexpected.
that's where I try to get.
All right, moving a little bit sideways because why not? Best money you ever spent as an author, and you can't say your editor because we already know that she's, you know, super fantastic.
Oh, best money I ever spent as an author. Um, Probably um, 2 years ago, we went to California. So
Uh-huh.
we the Stoker Con was at the Queen Mary,
Hmm.
and one of the guests of honor was Mr. George R. R. Martin, and then there was people like Chuck Wendig and Stephen Graham Jones and Liz Hand, and Gretchen McNeil and Nancy Holder, just all these awesome guests of honor, and I got to be a guest liaison.
Ooh.
So I was their little helper when they needed it. And so like when George R.R. Martin has a problem with his room, he calls me up and I go running across the boat and say, hey, what's the problem, George? And I try and get him taken care of. And there were a couple times on that trip where I got to, once was just me in his, like in the Churchill suite. And he would tell a couple stories, and once there was like a handful of us in there, and then we got to take a tour of the Queen Mary with the captain, with George and a few other people. So yeah, that was definitely money well spent, and it's a little nerve-wracking because George R.R. Martin does not call unless there's something really wrong, trying to kick him out of his room a day early or something. And
oh dear.
Like, just, here I come, I'll fix it, George.
Oh yeah, that's pretty cool. Wow.
Yeah, that was such a great trip. Getting to listen to his stories, and like they did a big Phil Bridges led Werewolves of L.A. Tabletop game with George Martin, Chuck Wendig, Stephen Graham Jones, and Maria Alexander, and a couple other people. And yeah, it was just
that's pretty cool.
Fun to be at.
Wow. Okay, that I think sold me on all of the conventions. Just from that, it sounds pretty fantastic.
I mean, in volunteering at, like, we weren't going to last May. We get out to Grand Rapids and ended up just like, oh, you know, we'll volunteer, we'll help out and stuff, swag back, whatever. And you meet so many people doing that, just helping out, and yeah, it's pretty awesome. So
yeah,
that's volunteer when you go to something like that either.
Good to know. Things to do in the future. Absolutely. Wow, that sounds fantastic. Okay, for people trying to get into the dark fantasy / horror world, are there traps that they should avoid?
Well, don't doubt yourself. I mean, you got to trust your story and trust your characters, and just plow through. And you get hung up on something, you know, charge on ahead. You don't have to write in a linear fashion. If you don't know how chapter 4 ends, that doesn't mean you can't write 16, 17, and 18. You can just press on, just battle through, and yeah, trust your story.
So your story builds from note cards. I imagine it's probably not terribly linear. How does that work when you're coming back and putting everything together?
So I had done a workshop with John Skip, and he kind of walked us through this process of just writing everything that happens down on a note card. And then you get your note cards. You write it down in any order, right? Like, you know, characters and locations and factions and whatever, and just write them down in any orders as they pop into your head. And then you can spread them out on the floor or on a big table or whatever, and then kind of put them in order. And you can see where you have gaps or whatever. And from there, I'm taking them and putting them into Scrivener and arranging them in kind of an outline there. I haven't really used Scrivener like this before. I've had it for a while, but I haven't used it very much, and I really want to.
It's pretty fantastic. You can do a lot more than I originally thought you could do with it. Their tutorial, though, is a bit terrifying.
Yeah, I'm just been clicking on everything and seeing what stuff does, and figuring out the tools that way, and it's definitely I think it's gonna work out really well for how I'm working on this one.
Very cool. Very cool. So note cards all the way through to a story. I wish I could work like that. That would be
Well,
super.
but here's the thing about that kind of cracks me up is I've started with an outline for just about every book I've ever written,
Mm-hmm.
and but I know from past experience, like I thought Chuggy number one, I had kind of an outline, whatever, and outline was out the window probably quarter of the way in. Chuggy number two, I was like, no, this time we're gonna outline, and that's how it's gonna be. And then I thought I was a planner, and I was a pantser, you
Yeah.
know. So the outline went out the window around chapter 5 or 6 for Chuggy number 2. And Chuggy number 3, I took completely different. And I think people can use this because instead of outlining the whole book, I would outline the next chapter. So I'd write this chapter from like Chuggy's perspective.
Uh-huh.
Or, you have a handful of point of view characters. So I would write Chuggy's chapter and then outline his next one. And then I would write Favaletta's chapter, outline her next one. And then, so I was kind of leapfrogging like that.
There's an idea.
It worked really well. And you can outline the next chapter. Like, I would just get to work 15 minutes early and sit in the parking lot and quick, sketch out a Chuggy's next chapter. It worked really well. I was getting up super early then. I was super motivated for Chuggy number 3.
Define super early. Is this like 4 a.m. early or a reasonable hour of like 7?
Like 4.
All right, you win.
Not anymore, I don't. My Fitbit starts buzzing on my wrist at 7 o'clock, and I'm like, we can put you off for another 9 minutes. That's fine, Fitbit. And I don't get anything done late at night. I don't get up early enough to get anything done. I don't know when I get anything done.
Time travel?
I only know of one person who has a time belt.
Uh-huh.
And that is Santa Claus. And my son argues with me that Santa doesn't have a time belt. I said, well, then, Jordy, how do you explain it? He must have a time belt. It's the only way he could do that. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm fairly certain that Isaac Asimov was a time traveler, so,
He must have gave his time belt technology to Chris Kringle.
Yep. Things to investigate.
I will lay a trap this Christmas.
Okay.
Steal a time belt for myself.
Okay. I want to know how that goes. If it works, can I borrow it? Because that would be so helpful.
Of course you could.
Fantastic. I might not give it back. Just saying right now. It's if I get my hand on it, we might not see it for a century or 2.
Oh, that's fine. As long as I give it back in 1,000 years, I can time travel back to myself now and give it all out.
There's some sort of laws of physics that you probably should be paying attention to for that, but
right. We shouldn't if you have a time belt and then I took it back I got it back in the future and brought it back to myself.
Right.
Can't let them touch.
Right. It would be the whole, Ghostbusters thing, don't cross the streams. Yeah, I got it. All right, is there anything else you'd like to add that is writing related, time travel related, or otherwise?
Let's see. Well, JP, I could let JP get a little camera time. Oh, wake up, JP. Oh, he's been in my shirt this whole time. JP.
Oh. He looks a little shell-shocked. What just happened?
Yep. Back to bed, JP. There we go.
All right.
Good old
JP. Definitely my favorite character. I might have to put a dog in my next novel based on JP. Yep.
There's a short story about JP in my collection, Doomsday Furnace.
Uh-huh.
And, well, I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but JP, little smuggler. So, and then Mo and JP made their way into Chuggy number 2, where the 2 Houndsman brothers each had an alpha hound for their pack, and one was Mo and one was JP.
I see.
Yeah,
I
that's
see.
something I try to do is write my friends or dogs or whatever into my stories.
Uh-huh. And not the birds though.
No, the birds will never be immortalized in one of my stories. You hear me? You hear me, Bluey?
They're just gonna get eaten by Darth Batman.
You know, it's not a bad idea.
Didn't mean it literally, but sure, we'll take it. Go for it. The snake just might gain a couple of ounces.
Yeah, I'd probably get in trouble too.
Well, yeah, I mean, I suppose it's probably yeah. Mm, mm. Well, bummer. Oh well, I'm sure you'll think of something.
Yeah, maybe I'll like sew them together like little Siamese bird, and then they can deal with that for a couple days.
I feel like that wouldn't end well. Probably be feathers everywhere.
Mm, yeah,
Or you could just get a cat and that would take care of everything.
we had cats. They were
Uh,
very rude, running across the bedroom at all hours of the night.
ah, yeah. They do that. Mine likes to sleep next to my face, which is super fun because Cat gets up my schnoz, and then you wake up sneezing.
Yeah, so the kitties had to go live with Grandma, where the house is bigger, and they seem to let Grandpa and Grandma sleep. So nice cats, real nice.
That's helpful. But yeah, lovely. Alrighty. Well, thank you so much for doing this. It was hugely entertaining, and I learned all sorts of things about StokerCon that I never knew before. Like, it can be more fantastic than just about anything. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna have to go.
Thank you very much for having me and JP and the birds on with you. It's
Yeah.
been absolutely my pleasure.